Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AAPI Convention 2016. We would like to welcome you all and thank you so much for your valuable participation.